Lord of the Rings is a masterpiece. I've been wanting to do a video on it for a while, but I didn't know where to start. So I guess I'll just start from the beginning. Not the conception by Tolkien himself, but my personal beginning of my love for the story and the world it's set in. The 90s, early 2000s, I was just like many other boys, full of imagination and wonder. I liked many things, not so much sport, even though I did play it, but adventures and tales of adventures is where I thrived. Star Wars was a big thing for me, and so was Dragon Ball. And I had a strange fascination for pirates for some reason. But their stories for another time. For as long as I can remember, I've had an unacquainted love for fantasy. High fantasy, to be more specific. Magic, elves, orcs, etc. And my dad kept talking about this book, about a hobbit. But my attention was very visual at that time, no reading for me, just watching and playing make-believe. Then a movie came out. My dad told me it was related to that Hobbit book, and it was based on a series set after it, that my dad also liked. So of course, we had to watch it. As a kid, it seemed a bit slow at the beginning, but it quickly picked up and I was hooked throughout. That movie was Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, of course. But my passion for it didn't start until I saw the trailer for its sequel. I was so excited to visit this world again. This next one seemed grander and much more action-packed. I watched the trailer over and over again. We bought games, the books. I was enthralled. The Two Towers came out, and we watched it. And watched it again when we got on video. It's all I cared about. The games were played, and action figures were bought and played with. But we wasn't done. A third film was released, and again, I fell into the world of Middle-earth. The Return of the King, famous for its epilogue, had me hooked at the cinema. That even though I needed the toilet, I could not leave until I watched it all. Even the credits had me stuck to my seat. Again, I wanted more from this world that Tolkien created, and again, I played countless games that were released and played with action figures I got for Christmas. My love for Middle-earth was made. But enough about going down memory lane, and talk about why this work and its movie counterpart is still a masterpiece. What makes Lord of the Rings so great? Firstly, the world building. You've probably seen the memes. Tolkien invented a whole language and needed a world for it to reside in. Then he made a whole creation story for his world and how it operates, and then made a children's book inside that. To this day, his books have been the template to a lot of other well-known fantasy stories. How we conceive of what an elf, dwarf and orc are is all thanks to Tolkien, and his template for world building has been used ever since. The themes of Lord of the Rings are innately timeless, but more specifically, they are a way to understand humanity in a whole. The themes of good triumphing over evil isn't so straightforward, but a lesson on how evil can corrupt the most noble of people and turn them against their friends and loved ones, and how you've got to fight back against that darkness that's corrupted you. And sometimes it can be too much, and sometimes you need friends to help you, and you can't always go it alone. But it's also about being there for the world that you live in, looking after the world that you live in. Tolkien was well known that he didn't like industry, so he didn't like factories that were being built, etc. He didn't like the machine, and so he put that into his story with how the orcs and the Uruk-hai, to be more precise, are manufactured in a way. They are made and they are corrupted and evil, and everything that they make. So they are created en masse, and the weapons and the mechanizations that they use are all unnatural to the world. They're all created by Sauron and by Saruman, respectively. And so this was basically nature, which was all the other races that built Middle-earth naturally, and built things naturally and found things naturally, going up against the machine, going up against Sauron, who wanted to take over the world. And at times it seemed it would never come to fruition. Like, they was unmatched by the machine, they was unmatched by Sauron and even by Saruman, but the works of the world ultimately helped them out, and they ultimately won in the end. One of the main themes is that even the smallest, even the most meek, even the most unknown characters in Frodo could save the world. that he could be so underrated that he could get behind Sauron and destroy the one thing that Sauron needed to take over Middle-earth. And so this is innately tied to a timeless story of how we need to look after the world, our friends, and we need to be brave and stand up for what we believe in, and also don't let the machine or don't let people corrupt you and make you do things that you ultimately don't believe in or don't want to do. And the characters of Lord of the Rings are so iconic on their own. You could mention Frodo to someone who hasn't even read or seen Lord of the Rings, and they'll know who it is. Tolkien fleshed out his characters with a fine-tooth comb, and not one character is the same. They're all unique and have their own unique flares to them. One of the go-to questions for Tolkien fans is, who is your favourite character? And you'll never get the same answer. He made these characters have amazing individual qualities. Some will say Frodo for his willpower to go on, even when an evil force is basically corrupting his mind. Some will say Aragorn for his selfless acts for his friends and his people, and rising up, becoming king against Sauron. And also some will say Sauron for being such a great villain, for being a force that you never see, yet you see his power and you see his will throughout the whole story. All these elements make Lord of the Rings a timeless masterpiece, and I've barely scratched the surface. I briefly talked about how my love for this world started, but it did not end there. I set out to learn more than what I saw in the movies. I looked up the history of Middle-earth. I read other books set in this world, including The Hobbit and The Silmarillion, and so my passion burns for this world still, and I'm not the only one. You see, with Lord of the Rings, it sets a world that people can dive into and get enthralled in so easily that they do seek out other mediums, so they'll play the games or they'll watch the films over and over again. There's been numerous people that would watch Lord of the Rings every year. And also the books, again, are timeless classics. The Hobbit was a fantastic book. I'm currently halfway through The Two Towers. I know I'm crazy for not finishing the books, but I've also read The Silmarillion. So I've read The Silmarillion before I've read The Two Towers. But I've also got other books that I still need to read. And through this world that he created, people have an interest in Tolkien himself and his life. And that's why he sold books like his letters and his poems and things like that. Because people get invested in how he built this world and how he lived, really, or how his mind worked. And it's such a cathartic thing to go into. When you want your imagination to soar, it's a great outlet. And people see this a lot. So that's what I've done. It's one of the biggest things that's influenced my life is The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and any other works of Tolkien, because it has powerful messaging that you can bring into real life and use. So this is just a brief video outlining certain parts of why Lord of the Rings is a masterpiece, and I'll be diving deeper in future videos. The written works and the movie trilogies, I'll be breaking down the Rings of Power and why it's an abomination to not only Tolkien's legacy but fantasy as a whole, and of course lore videos and breakdowns of the stories themselves. So I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.